My mom spent 20 years building her dream from nothing. She wasn't born into money. She worked double shifts, skipped vacations, and poured every ounce of energy into creating a successful boutique bakery in our small, Midwestern town. Everyone knew her. Everyone loved her. She remembered customers' birthdays, donated to local fundraisers, and treated her employees like family. Then came Denise. Denise started as my mom's friend before becoming her business partner. For years, they seemed inseparable. They laughed together, planned expansions together, and built a loyal customer base together. My mom trusted her completely. That trust became the biggest mistake of her life. One Monday morning, Denise walked into the office carrying a folder. She calmly placed it on my mom's desk and informed her she was leaving the company. Not only was she leaving, she had already convinced nearly every employee to follow her. My mom thought it was a joke. It wasn't. Over the next 2 weeks, staff members she'd helped train packed up and left. Customers suddenly began mentioning a new bakery opening across town. Denise had been secretly planning everything for months. The worst part? She had used company resources, customer contacts, and insider knowledge to build her new business while still collecting a paycheck from my mom. I still remember watching my mother sit at the kitchen table that night, staring at the wall for hours. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just looked broken. And that was only the beginning. Because 6 months later, a devastating flood swept through our town. The bakery never recovered. My mother's dream died in muddy water. And Denise was standing on the other side of town celebrating record profits. The woman who once called my mom her best friend had taken everything. And when I saw what that betrayal did to my family, I decided somebody needed to pay. The flood may have destroyed the bakery, but Denise wasn't satisfied with winning. She wanted everyone to know she had won. While my mom struggled through insurance claims, contractors, and mounting debt, Denise filled social media with photos of her booming new business. Every post felt like a personal attack. Smiling selfies, grand opening celebrations, customer appreciation events. Then the rumors started. People around town began whispering that my mom had mismanaged the bakery. Some claimed she'd gone bankrupt because she was irresponsible. Others said Denise had saved the employees from a failing business. None of it was true. My mom stopped leaving the house. The woman who once knew everyone in town suddenly avoided grocery stores, church events, and even family gatherings. She was terrified someone would ask what happened. The stress spread through our entire family. My dad became quiet and withdrawn. Bills piled up. Arguments became common. Every conversation somehow circled back to Denise and the damage she'd caused. Then one evening, my mom received a call from her new employer. Someone had anonymously contacted them questioning her professional credentials. The complaint went nowhere because it was completely baseless. But we all knew exactly who was behind it. That was the moment something inside me snapped. This wasn't business competition anymore. This was cruelty. I sat in my apartment staring at my phone for hours. The anger I'd been carrying for over a year finally hardened into something else. Determination. If Denise wanted to spend her life making my family's misery worse, then maybe it was time someone returned the favor. And I knew exactly where to start. For weeks, I carried that anger around like a weight in my chest. Every time I saw my mom staring blankly out the window, every time my parents argued about money, every time another rumor reached our ears, that weight got heavier. But eventually, I realized something. Denise thrived on attention. She loved being admired. She loved being seen as the successful businesswoman who had everything together. Her reputation was the center of her world. So instead of confronting her directly, I decided to learn everything I could about the image she worked so hard to protect. I spent nights scrolling through public posts, local business pages, and community forums. Denise was everywhere. She portrayed herself as a generous entrepreneur, a devoted church member, and a pillar of the community. Meanwhile, the people closest to my family knew a very different story. Former employees quietly shared how she manipulated people. Old customers mentioned promises she never kept. Several people had experienced the same charm at first, followed by the same betrayal later. The pattern was impossible to ignore. The more I learned, the more frustrated I became. Denise had somehow convinced half the town that she was the victim and the hero at the same time. One evening, I visited my parents for dinner. My mom barely touched her food. She looked exhausted. As I drove home that night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to spend my life consumed by hatred. But I also wasn't going to sit back and watch Denise rewrite history. If she wanted the community's respect, then the community deserved to know the truth. And the opportunity to expose that truth arrived sooner than I ever expected. A townwide business awards event was announced for the following month. And Denise's name was at the top of the nominee list. The annual Business Awards banquet was one of the biggest events in town. Local business owners, city officials, reporters, and community leaders all attended. Winning an award there could boost a company's reputation for years. And Denise wasn't just nominated. She was the overwhelming favorite to win. For weeks, her social media pages were filled with excitement. Friends congratulated her in advance. Customers praised her success story. The narrative was already written. Denise was the hardworking entrepreneur who had built an empire from the ground up. But there was one problem. The story wasn't true. A few days before the event, several former employees reached out to me after hearing about the nomination. They were tired of staying silent. They remembered how Denise had recruited them while still working for my mother. They remembered confidential business information being used to launch her competing company. Most importantly, they were willing to speak. Not out of revenge. Out of guilt. Many admitted they had followed Denise years earlier because they believed her version of events. Only later did they realize how much damage had been done. Together, they gathered emails, messages, and documents that painted a very different picture than the one Denise presented publicly. I didn't post anything online. I didn't create drama. Instead, that information quietly found its way to several members of the awards committee and a local journalist who was preparing a feature story on the nominees. Then I waited. The night of the banquet arrived. Denise walked into the ballroom smiling confidently, dressed as if she had already won. Across town, my family sat at home, completely unaware of what was about to happen. For the first time in years, the carefully constructed image Denise had built was about to face something she could never control. The truth. And once it started coming out, there would be no stopping it. The banquet started exactly as everyone expected. Denise smiled for photos, shook hands with local officials, and accepted compliments from nearly everyone she met. She looked confident, certain that the evening would end with her standing on stage holding a trophy. Then everything changed. Just before the final awards were announced, members of the committee quietly pulled her aside. Questions had been raised about her nomination. Documents and witness statements had arrived during the review process, and they couldn't be ignored. Word spread quickly through the room. By the end of the night, Denise wasn't accepting an award. She was leaving through a side exit. Within weeks, the local newspaper published a story about the controversy surrounding her business practices. Former employees publicly shared their experiences. Customers began asking difficult questions. The perfect image she had spent years building started to crack. Some people continued supporting her. Others didn't. But for the first time, the town heard both sides of the story. The biggest surprise came from my mom. When she learned what had happened, she didn't celebrate. She didn't laugh. She didn't demand revenge. Instead, she quietly said something I'll never forget. The truth was always enough. Over the following year, she slowly began rebuilding her life. She found confidence in her new career, reconnected with old friends, and started leaving the house again. The fear that had controlled her for so long gradually loosened its grip. My parents' marriage improved. Family dinners became normal again. Laughter returned to our home. As for Denise, she remained successful. But her reputation was never quite the same. People became more careful, more skeptical. And that's when I finally understood something. Real revenge isn't destroying someone's life. It's refusing to let them destroy yours. Denise took my mother's business. She took her trust. She took years of happiness. But in the end, she didn't get the one thing she wanted most, the final word. My mother got that instead. And that was enough.